How could a single envelope turn my world upside down? When the legal papers landed on my kitchen table, I finally realized that all my games and secrets had led to this. My husband was done, and he had the proof to burn my perfect life to the ground. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. My name is Eirene Halvorsen, and I'm 32 years old. I work as an HR coordinator at a mid-sized tech company in suburban Minneapolis. For years, I thought I had everything figured out. I had a nice house, a steady job, and what everyone called a perfect marriage to Jonah. But perfection, I learned, can feel like a prison when you're craving something more. The evening light filtered through our kitchen windows as I stirred pasta sauce, watching Jonah hunched over his laptop at the dining table. Again. His fingers clicked methodically across the keyboard, the same rhythm I'd heard every night for the past 3 years. Systems analyst work, he called it. I called it an excuse to avoid talking to me. Dinner's ready, I announced, setting plates on the table with more force than necessary. Jonah glanced up, his brown eyes tired behind wire-rimmed glasses. Just give me 5 more minutes. I'm debugging this code and it's always 5 more minutes with you. The words came out sharper than I intended, but I didn't apologize. Clara's already eaten and gone to her room. When was the last time we had a family dinner? He closed the laptop with a sigh. You're right. I'm sorry. But even as he said it, I could see his mind was still somewhere else, lost in algorithms and data streams. This was my life. Predictable. Boring. Safe. After dinner, Jonah retreated to his home office while I helped Clara with her homework. Our 9-year-old daughter had his same focused intensity, carefully coloring within the lines of her art project. "Mummy, are you and Daddy fighting?" she asked without looking up from her drawing. The question caught me off guard. "No, sweetheart. Why would you think that?" "You both seem sad lately, and you don't laugh together anymore like Tommy's parents do." I forced a smile. Adults just get busy sometimes. Everything's fine. But everything wasn't fine. That night, as Jonah fell asleep beside me, I stared at the ceiling thinking about the conversation I'd had with my best friend Julia earlier that week. She'd been talking about her new relationship, the excitement in her voice as she described the butterflies, the late-night texting, the feeling of being truly desired. When was the last time I felt desired? My phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from Marcus Rowan, the IT guy from work who'd been helping with our new employee database system. We'd been exchanging messages about work projects, but lately, our conversations had drifted into more personal territory. "Working late again. This place is so quiet without your laugh echoing through the halls." I felt a flutter in my stomach as I read it. When Jonah's breathing deepened into sleep, I typed back, "You notice my laugh?" Hard not to. It's the best part of my day. My heart raced as I quickly deleted the conversation thread. This was harmless flirting, I told myself. Everyone needs to feel appreciated. Jonah certainly wasn't making me feel special anymore. The next morning, I called Julia while getting ready for work. "I think I'm losing myself in this marriage," I confided, applying mascara in the bathroom mirror. "Jonah treats me like I'm just another piece of furniture. He comes home, eats dinner, works on his computer, and goes to bed. We haven't had a real conversation in months." "Have you tried talking to him about it?" Julia asked. "What's the point? He'll just say he's busy with work and promise to do better, but nothing ever changes. I'm 32 years old, Julia. I shouldn't have to beg my husband for attention." "Maybe you two should try counseling," I scoffed. Jonah would never agree to that. He thinks feelings are just another problem to be solved with logic. I paused, watching myself in the mirror. Sometimes I wonder what it would be like to be with someone who actually sees me. "Eirene, be careful. That kind of thinking leads to trouble." But I was already thinking about Marcus and the way he looked at me during our meetings. like I was interesting, like I mattered. At work that day, I found myself taking extra care with my appearance. A little more makeup, a blouse that showed just a hint of cleavage. When Marcus stopped by my desk to discuss the database migration, I felt electricity in the air. "You look nice today," he said, his voice low enough that only I could hear. "Thank you. It's nice when someone notices." He leaned against my desk, close enough that I caught a hint of his cologne. "Rough morning at home? Is it that obvious? You just seem like you could use some cheering up. Want to grab coffee later? I know a place that makes amazing lattes." I should have said no, should have remembered I was married, that I had a daughter who needed stability, that I was playing with fire. Instead, I heard myself saying, "I'd like that." That afternoon, sitting across from Marcus at a cozy cafe downtown, I felt more alive than I had in years. He asked about my dreams, my opinions on everything from movies to politics. He laughed at my jokes and made me feel witty and desirable. "Your husband's a lucky man," he said as we prepared to leave. "Sometimes I wonder if he even realizes what he has," I replied, immediately regretting the admission. "His loss," Marcus said simply, and the way he looked at me made my knees weak. That evening, Jonah was working late at the office. Clara was at a sleepover. I had the house to myself and couldn't stop thinking about the afternoon with Marcus. My phone buzzed with another text from him. "Thanks for coffee today. I haven't enjoyed myself that much in a long time." I typed and deleted several responses before settling on, "Me too. We should do it again sometime." "How about tomorrow?" I stared at the message, my finger hovering over the keyboard. This was a line I was about to cross, and some part of me knew there would be no going back. "I'd love to." As I hit send, I heard Jonah's car in the driveway. I quickly deleted the conversation and slipped my phone into my pocket, my heart pounding. When he walked in, looking exhausted and distracted, I felt a surge of resentment. "How was your day?" he asked, loosening his tie. "Fine," I lied. "Same as always." He nodded absently and headed for his office. "I need to finish up some work. Don't wait up." As I watched him disappear down the hallway, I felt justified in my choices. If my husband couldn't be bothered to make time for me, why shouldn't I find happiness elsewhere? I was just looking out for myself, protecting my own emotional needs. Later that night, alone in bed, my phone buzzed again. Another message from Marcus. "Miss you already." I started to delete it, as I had been doing, but paused when I heard Jonah's footsteps in the hallway. My heart racing, I quickly cleared the screen just as he entered the bedroom. "Everything okay?" he asked, noticing my flustered expression. "Just checking work emails," I said, setting the phone aside. But as he settled into bed beside me, I realized I was already in deeper than I'd intended. The next few weeks fell into a dangerous rhythm. Coffee dates with Marcus became lunch meetings. Lunch meetings became after-work drinks. Each time, I told myself I was just enjoying a friendship, that I deserved to feel appreciated. Julia noticed the change in me during one of our weekly shopping trips. "You seem different lately," she said as we browsed through department store racks. "Happier." "Did you and Jonah work things out?" I felt heat rise in my cheeks. "Not exactly. I've just been focusing on myself more, taking better care of my needs." "What does that mean?" I pretended to examine a sweater, avoiding her eyes. "I've been spending time with a friend from work, someone who actually listens when I talk." Julia's expression shifted. "Eirene, please tell me you're not—" "It's not what you think," I cut her off. "We're just friends. Is it so wrong that I want to feel valued? You're married, with a child. And my husband treats me like a roommate. When was the last time Jonah complimented me? When did he last ask about my day and actually listen to the answer?" I could hear my voice rising. "I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm just having conversations with someone who appreciates me." But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't entirely true. The texts with Marcus had become more frequent and flirtatious. Yesterday, he'd told me I was beautiful. This morning, He'd sent a photo of his coffee with the message, "Wish you were here to share it." Julia grabbed my arm gently. "I'm worried about you. This kind of thing starts innocent, but it can spiral quickly. Think about Clara." "Don't bring my daughter into this," I snapped. "I'm a good mother, and I'm not doing anything that would hurt her." But that afternoon, Clara proved she was more perceptive than I'd given her credit for. She was drawing at the kitchen table while I prepared dinner, and I noticed her artwork had changed. Instead of the happy family pictures she usually drew, this one showed 3 figures standing far apart from each other. "Tell me about your drawing, sweetheart," I said, sitting beside her. "That's you, and that's Daddy, and that's me." She pointed to each figure, "But we're all in different places now." My chest tightened. "Why did you draw us that way?" "Because that's how it feels. Daddy's always working, and you're always on your phone or going out, and I'm just here." I wanted to reassure her, to tell her she was wrong, but the truth in her words stung. I had been distracted lately, caught up in the excitement of my connection with Marcus. "Mummy's not going anywhere," I said, pulling her close. "I love you more than anything." "Then why do you seem so sad all the time?" Before I could answer, Jonah came home from work, but instead of his usual routine of greeting us and disappearing into his office, he lingered in the kitchen. "How was everyone's day?" he asked, making an obvious effort to engage. "Fine," I said automatically, then felt guilty when Clara's face lit up at her father's attention. "I drew a picture, Daddy. Want to see?" As Jonah examined Clara's drawing, I saw concern flicker across his face. He looked at me questioningly, but I busied myself with dinner preparation. That evening, after Clara was in bed, Jonah made another unusual move. He closed his laptop and joined me on the couch. "We should talk," he said. My stomach dropped. Did he know about Marcus? Had someone seen us together? "About what?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. "About us, about our family. Clara's been asking me if we're getting divorced." "What? Why would she think that?" "Because we barely speak to each other anymore. Because you seem unhappy all the time. Because I've been buried in work and neglecting both of you." He turned to face me fully. "I know I haven't been the best husband lately. The Peterson project has been consuming my life, but that's no excuse. I want to fix this." For a moment, I felt a flicker of hope. This was what I'd been wanting. For Jonah to notice, to care, to fight for our marriage. But then my phone buzzed with a text, and I instinctively reached for it. Jonah's expression hardened slightly. "Can that wait?" "Sorry, it might be work." I glanced at the screen and saw Marcus's name. "Actually, it's nothing important." But the moment was broken. Jonah leaned back, the distance between us feeling wider than ever. "Maybe we should try counseling," he suggested. "I know I haven't been present, but I want to change that. I love you, Eirene. I love our family." I should have said yes, should have deleted Marcus's number and focused on rebuilding what Jonah and I had. Instead, I found myself saying, "I don't think talking to a stranger is going to solve our problems." "Then what will?" I didn't have an answer for him. Or rather, I did, but it wasn't one I could share. What I wanted was to feel the way Marcus made me feel. Desired, interesting, alive. I wanted the excitement of new romance, the thrill of being pursued. After Jonah went to bed, I finally read Marcus's message. "Can't stop thinking about our conversation today. You're amazing. You know that?" I typed back, "You make me feel amazing. Jonah wouldn't even notice if I disappeared." "His loss would be my gain," came the immediate reply. The next morning, I woke up to find Jonah already gone for work. There was a note on the kitchen counter. "Took Clara to school, made you coffee. Let's try to have dinner together tonight, just the 3 of us. I love you." The gesture should have warmed my heart, but instead it felt like too little, too late. Where was this effort months ago when I was begging for his attention? At work, I found myself looking forward to seeing Marcus more than I cared to admit. When he stopped by my desk around 10, I felt my pulse quicken. "Busy tonight?" he asked casually. Family dinner, I said, then added, unfortunately. He raised an eyebrow. Trouble in paradise. More like purgatory. My husband suddenly wants to play devoted family man, but it feels forced. Maybe because it is forced. Maybe he's just going through the motions because he thinks he should, not because he wants to. The suggestion planted a seed of doubt that grew throughout the day. By evening, when Jonah made a genuine effort to engage Clara and me in conversation over dinner, I found myself analyzing his every word and gesture. Was he being authentic or just checking boxes? When Clara excused herself to watch TV, Jonah reached across the table and took my hand. This was nice, he said. I'd forgotten how much I enjoyed just talking with you. Had you? I asked, unable to keep the skepticism out of my voice. His face fell slightly. I know I have a lot to make up for. I've been a terrible husband and father lately, but I want to do better. I want us to work. Looking at him then, really looking at him, I saw the man I'd fallen in love with 8 years ago. The quiet intelligence, the steady reliability, the genuine care in his eyes. For a moment, I wavered. Then my phone buzzed again. And again. Jonah's jaw tightened. Are you going to check that? It's probably just Julia, I lied. Then you won't mind ignoring it. But I could see the messages lighting up my screen, and curiosity won. Just let me make sure it's not an emergency. 3 messages from Marcus. Thinking about you. Wish I could see you tonight. Sweet dreams, beautiful. I quickly turned the phone face down, but the damage was done. Jonah had seen my expression change, had noticed how I'd smiled involuntarily at the screen. Who was it? He asked quietly. Julia. She's having issues with her boyfriend. But Jonah wasn't stupid. I could see the wheels turning in his mind, the way his analytical nature was processing the inconsistencies in my behavior. That night, as we got ready for bed, he was unusually quiet. I caught him watching me in the mirror as I brushed my teeth. Is there something you want to tell me? He asked. My heart hammered against my ribs. Like what? I don't know. You tell me. There's nothing to tell. You're being paranoid. He nodded slowly, but I could see he didn't believe me. As we lay in bed, the space between us felt like an ocean. The next morning, I discovered something that made my blood run cold. While getting coffee, I noticed a charge on our joint bank account statement that I didn't recognize. $500 to something called Hartwell Investigations. When I called the number, a professional voice answered, Hartwell Private Investigations, how can I help you? I hung up immediately, my hands shaking. Jonah had hired a private investigator. The knowledge that Jonah suspected something should have scared me into ending things with Marcus. Instead, it made me reckless. If my husband didn't trust me, if he was going to spy on me like some jealous teenager, then maybe I deserved to find happiness elsewhere. That weekend, we had plans to meet Julia and her boyfriend David, along with another couple, Tom and Sarah, at a trendy downtown restaurant. It was the kind of double date we used to enjoy, back when Jonah and I actually liked spending time together. I spent extra time getting ready, choosing a dress that hugged my curves and made me feel confident. When Jonah saw me, he smiled, the first genuine smile he'd given me in weeks. You look beautiful, he said, and for a moment I remembered why I'd married him. But the moment didn't last. During the drive to the restaurant, his phone rang with a work call, and he spent 20 minutes discussing server configurations, while I stared out the window, feeling invisible again. At the restaurant, our friends were already seated when we arrived. Julia hugged me warmly, but I caught her studying my face with concern. You look great, she said. That dress is gorgeous on you. Thanks. I felt like dressing up tonight. As we settled into our seats, I noticed Jonah seemed distracted, checking his phone more than usual. The irony wasn't lost on me. For months I'd complained about his work obsession, and now that I had secrets of my own, his distraction was almost convenient. The conversation flowed easily at first, David was telling a funny story about a client meeting gone wrong, and everyone was laughing. But as the evening progressed, I found myself growing increasingly irritated with Jonah's lack of engagement. When Sarah asked about our recent anniversary, Jonah looked blank for a moment. "It was nice," he said vaguely. "Quiet evening at home." "How romantic," Tom joked, but I felt embarrassed by the lackluster response. "Well, some of us don't need grand gestures to feel loved," I said with a tight smile. "Though a little effort wouldn't kill anyone." An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. Julia shot me a warning look, but I was just getting started. "I mean, when was the last time any of you received a truly romantic gesture from your partners?" I continued, my voice getting louder. "David, didn't you surprise Julia with that weekend getaway last month? And Tom, you're always bringing Sarah flowers." "Eirene," Jonah said quietly, "maybe we shouldn't—" "Shouldn't what? Talk about how some husbands actually make an effort to keep the romance alive." I took a large sip of wine, feeling reckless. "It's just interesting how different relationships can be. Some people never stop trying to win over their partners, and others—" I gestured vaguely at Jonah. "Just assume their spouse will always be there, no matter how little attention they give them." The table was silent now, everyone staring at their plates. Jonah's face had gone pale. "I think you've had enough wine," he said, reaching for my glass. "Don't you dare," I snapped, pulling it away. "I'm perfectly fine. I'm just making conversation. God forbid I express an opinion." "You're embarrassing yourself," he said, his voice low but firm. "I'm embarrassing myself. That's rich, coming from someone who can't be bothered to look up from his phone long enough to engage with his friends." "I was dealing with a work emergency." "There's always a work emergency with you, Jonah. Always something more important than your family." Julia cleared her throat. "Maybe we should order dessert." But I was on a roll now, months of resentment pouring out. "You know what the problem is? Some people take their relationships for granted. They stop trying, stop caring, stop seeing their partners as actual human beings with needs and feelings." "And some people," Jonah said, his voice dangerously quiet, "don't appreciate what they have until it's gone." The words hung in the air like a threat. I felt a chill run down my spine, but I was too angry and too drunk to back down. "Maybe what they have isn't worth appreciating," I shot back. That did it. Jonah stood up abruptly, throwing his napkin on the table. "I'm going home," he announced. "Eirene, you can find your own way back when you're ready to act like an adult." "Fine by me," I called after him as he walked away. "I'm having more fun without you anyway." As soon as he was gone, the mood at the table shifted dramatically. Tom and Sarah made polite excuses and left within minutes. Julia and David lingered, but I could see the judgment in their eyes. "What the hell was that about?" Julia asked once we were alone. "What? I was just being honest about my marriage. You humiliated him in front of everyone, and yourself too." "He humiliated himself by caring more about work than his wife." Julia leaned forward, her voice urgent. "Eirene, this isn't like you. Something's going on, and I'm worried you're about to do something you'll regret. The only thing I regret is wasting 8 years of my life with someone who doesn't even see me." I pulled out my phone and, without thinking, sent a text to Marcus. "Are you free? I could use some company." His response came immediately. "Always free for you. Where do you want to meet?" Julia saw me typing and grabbed my arm. "Don't. Whatever you're thinking of doing, don't." "You don't understand," I said, shaking her off. "You have David. He adores you, pays attention to you, makes you feel special. When was the last time my husband made me feel anything other than invisible? So work on your marriage. Go to counseling. Don't blow up your life because you're having a rough patch." But I was already standing up, gathering my purse. "I'm going to find someone who actually wants to spend time with me." "Eirene, please. I'll talk to you later, Julia." I left her sitting there and walked 3 blocks to the bar where Marcus was waiting. When he saw me, his face lit up in a way that Jonah's hadn't in months. "Rough night?" he asked, standing to hug me. "You could say that, but it's getting better." We found a quiet corner booth and talked for hours. Marcus listened to everything: my frustrations with Jonah, my feelings of being taken for granted, my loneliness in my own marriage. He was sympathetic, understanding, everything I needed him to be. "You deserve better," he said, his hand covering mine on the table. "You deserve someone who sees how incredible you are." "Do I?" I asked, feeling vulnerable and desperate for validation. "Absolutely. Any man would be lucky to have you." When he walked me to my car later that night, he kissed me. It was soft and sweet, and made me feel more alive than I had in years. For those few seconds, I forgot about everything else: my marriage, my daughter, the consequences of what I was doing. I drove home in a daze, my lips still tingling from the kiss. The house was dark when I arrived, and I assumed Jonah was already asleep. But as I crept upstairs, I saw light coming from under his office door. I paused outside, listening. He was on the phone with someone, his voice low and serious. "I need to know everything," he was saying. "Every meeting, every phone call, every place she goes. I have to be sure before I make any decisions." My blood ran cold. He was talking to the private investigator. I tiptoed to our bedroom and got ready for bed, my mind racing. How much did he know? How long had he been watching me? And more importantly, what was I going to do about it? As I lay in the dark, waiting for him to come to bed, I realized I was at a crossroads. I could confess everything, beg for forgiveness, and try to rebuild our marriage. Or I could continue down this path and see where it led. When Jonah finally came to bed an hour later, he didn't say a word, but I could feel the tension radiating from his side of the bed, and I knew that whatever came next, there would be no going back. My phone, charging on the nightstand, lit up with a text from Marcus. "Thank you for tonight. You're amazing, and I hope you know that." I quickly turned the phone face down, but not before I saw Jonah's eyes open in the darkness. He'd seen the message. Neither of us said anything, but I knew the game had fundamentally changed. The next morning, Jonah was gone before I woke up. He'd left a note saying he was taking Clara to his parents' house for the day and that we needed to talk when they returned. My stomach churned as I read his carefully measured words. This wasn't going to be a conversation about our marriage problems anymore. This was going to be a reckoning. I spent the day in a panic, calling Julia repeatedly until she finally answered. "I messed up," I said without preamble. "Really messed up." "What happened after you left last night?" I told her about meeting Marcus, about the kiss, about Jonah's phone call with the private investigator. Julia was quiet for a long moment after I finished. "Eirene, you need to tell me the truth. How far has this gone with this guy?" "It was just a kiss. I swear, nothing else has happened." "But you wanted it to." I couldn't deny that. "I felt something I haven't felt in years. Is that so wrong?" "Yes, when you're married with a child, it is wrong. You need to end this now before it destroys everything." "Maybe everything deserves to be destroyed. Maybe Jonah and I were never meant to last." "Don't say that. You're scared and making excuses. Think about Clara." But I was already crafting a different narrative in my mind. If Jonah wanted to paint me as the villain, fine. But I wouldn't go down without a fight. I'd been neglected, taken for granted, emotionally abandoned. Anyone in my position would have looked for comfort elsewhere. That evening, Jonah returned with Clara and his parents, Derek and Susan. The moment I saw their faces, I knew this wasn't going to be a private conversation. "Mom, Dad, why don't you take Clara upstairs to play while Eirene and I talk?" Jonah suggested. "Actually," Derek said, his voice stern, "I think we should all talk. As a family." My mother-in-law, usually warm and welcoming, could barely look at me. Clara, sensing the tension, clung to her grandmother's hand. "What's this about?" I asked, trying to project innocence and confusion. Jonah sat across from me at the kitchen table, his parents flanking him like sentries. "I think you know exactly what this is about. If you have something to say, just say it." "Fine." He pulled out his phone and began reading. Thursday, 3:47 p.m. Wish you were here to share it. Friday, 11:23 p.m. Can't stop thinking about our conversation today. You're amazing, you know that? Saturday, 1:15 a.m. Thank you for tonight. You're amazing, and I hope you know that. My face burned with embarrassment and anger. You went through my phone? I didn't have to. You left it face up on the nightstand, multiple times. Derek cleared his throat. Eirene, who is sending you these messages? I felt cornered, attacked. These people who were supposed to love and support me were ganging up on me like I was some kind of criminal. It's not what you think, I said. Marcus is a colleague. We're friends. Friends? Susan spoke for the first time, her voice dripping with disappointment. Friends don't send married women messages like that at 1 a.m. You don't understand what I've been going through, I said, my voice rising. Jonah has been emotionally absent for months. He works constantly, never pays attention to me, treats me like I'm invisible. I was lonely and found someone who actually listens to me. Is that such a crime? So this is my fault? Jonah asked quietly. Not entirely, but you can't ignore your wife for months, and then act surprised when she seeks companionship elsewhere. Derek slammed his hand on the table, making everyone jump. That's enough. I've been married to Susan for 35 years. We've had rough patches, times when work or life got in the way. But we never, ever betrayed our vows. I haven't betrayed anything, I protested. We're just friends. Don't lie to us, Susan said, and don't lie to yourself. You're having an emotional affair, and from the sound of these messages, it's heading toward a physical one. I felt tears of frustration building. You all act like Jonah is some perfect husband. Do you know he hasn't told me he loves me in 3 months? Do you know he forgot our anniversary? Do you know he spends more time talking to his computer than his wife? So you decided to find someone else to talk to, Derek said coldly. I decided to find someone who values me, someone who sees me as more than just a cook and a housekeeper. Jonah flinched at that, and I saw hurt flash across his face. Good. Maybe now he understood how I'd been feeling. Where is this heading, Eirene? Susan asked. What's your endgame here? I don't know, I admitted. I just know I can't keep living like this, feeling unwanted and unappreciated in my own home. So you want a divorce? Jonah asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The question hung in the air like a bomb. Did I want a divorce? The thought had crossed my mind, especially lately when I imagined what life might be like with someone like Marcus, someone who made me feel alive and desired. I want to feel like I matter, I said finally. If that means ending our marriage, then maybe that's what needs to happen. Clara's voice came from the doorway, small and frightened. Mommy, are you and Daddy getting divorced? We all turned to see our 9-year-old daughter standing there, tears streaming down her face. Susan immediately went to her, but Clara pushed past her grandmother and ran to me. Please don't get divorced, she sobbed into my shoulder. I'll be good. I'll be better. Please don't leave. My heart shattered. In all my self-justification and anger, I'd forgotten the most important person in this equation. My daughter, who needed stability and security, not parents who were too busy fighting to take care of her. Sweetheart, this isn't about you, I whispered, holding her tight. You're perfect just the way you are. Then why are you leaving? I'm not leaving. Nobody's leaving. But even as I said it, I could feel the lie in the words. Something was already broken, and I wasn't sure it could be fixed. Jonah stood up, his face a mask of controlled pain. Clara, why don't you go upstairs with Grandma and Grandpa? Mummy and I need to finish talking. After they left, we sat in silence for several minutes. Finally, Jonah spoke. I want you to end it. Whatever this is with this man, I want it over. And then what? We go back to the way things were. We go to counseling. We work on our problems like married people are supposed to do. What if I don't want to? His jaw tightened. Then I'll file for divorce and seek primary custody of Clara. The threat hit me like a physical blow. You can't do that. I can and I will. I have documentation of your affair. I have witnesses to your behavior. I have evidence that you're putting your own selfish desires above our daughter's well-being. It's not an affair. I haven't slept with him. Yet. The word hung between us, loaded with accusation and truth. Because he was right. If things had continued, if I hadn't been caught, I probably would have ended up in Marcus's bed. I need time to think, I said. You have until tomorrow. End it with him, delete his number, and commit to fixing our marriage. Or, I file papers on Monday. After he left the room, I sat alone in the kitchen, my phone in my hands. I had two choices: save my marriage or lose everything. It should have been an easy decision, but as I stared at Marcus's contact information, I realized that part of me wasn't ready to give up the one thing that had made me feel alive in months. I was playing a dangerous game, and I was about to discover just how much I had to lose. I didn't end it with Marcus. Instead, I convinced myself that Jonah was bluffing, that he wouldn't actually follow through on his threats. I was wrong. Monday morning, I was served with divorce papers at my office. The humiliation of having a process server interrupt my staff meeting was nothing compared to the shock of seeing the contents of the petition. Jonah wasn't just asking for a divorce. He was asking for primary custody of Clara, citing adultery and emotional abandonment of parental duties. He was asking for the house, claiming I'd violated the moral clause in our prenup. He was systematically dismantling the life I'd taken for granted. My hands shook as I called his office. Jonah Halvorsen's line, "This is Melissa." It's his wife. I need to speak with him immediately. I'm sorry, Mr. Halvorsen is in meetings all day. Can I take a message? Tell him his wife called about the papers he had delivered. Tell him this is insane and he needs to call me back right now. But Jonah didn't call back. Instead, I received a text from his lawyer. Mrs. Halvorsen, please direct all communication through our office. We're available to discuss settlement terms at your convenience. Settlement terms, like our 8-year marriage was just a business transaction to be dissolved. I called Julia, desperate for support. He served me with divorce papers. I sobbed into the phone. At work, in front of everyone. He's trying to take Clara away from me. Oh, Eirene, I'm so sorry. But maybe this is the wake-up call you needed. End things with that guy and fight for your marriage. It's too late for that. You should see what he's asking for. He wants everything. Then get a lawyer. Fight back. But even as she said it, I knew my position was weak. I was the one who'd been unfaithful. I was the one who'd been neglecting my family while pursuing another man. In a court of law, I would be the villain. That afternoon, Marcus found me crying in my car in the parking garage. Hey, what's wrong? He asked, sliding into the passenger seat. I showed him the divorce papers, watching his face change as he read through them. This is serious, he said finally. He's trying to destroy me. Take my daughter, my home, everything. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Maybe you should try to work things out with him. I stared at him in disbelief. What? I mean, I care about you, but I never intended to break up your family. If there's a chance you can save your marriage. Are you abandoning me too? I'm not abandoning you. I'm being realistic. You have a child to think about. So that's it? You're done with me now that things are complicated. He looked uncomfortable. It's not like that, but I can't be the reason you lose custody of your daughter. As I watched him get out of my car and walk away, I realized I'd lost everything. My husband, my marriage, my home, and now the man I'd risked it all for was backing away the moment things got difficult. That evening, I went to Jonah's parents' house to see Clara. Susan answered the door, her face cold. She's doing homework, she said. Try not to upset her more than you already have. Clara was at the kitchen table, working on math problems. When she saw me, she ran into my arms. Mummy, are you coming home? Not tonight, sweetheart, but I wanted to see you and help with your homework. As we worked through her math problems, I noticed she'd drawn another picture. This one showed a house with 3 figures inside and 1 figure standing outside alone. "Who's outside the house?" I asked, though I already knew. "That's you," she said matter-of-factly. "Daddy said you made some bad choices, and now you have to live somewhere else for a while." The simplicity of her explanation broke my heart. In her 9-year-old mind, I was the one who'd chosen to leave, who'd chosen to break up our family. Jonah appeared in the doorway, and Clara immediately ran to him. "Daddy, can Mommy stay for dinner?" "Not tonight, sweetheart. Mommy has some things she needs to figure out." After Clara went upstairs to get ready for bed, Jonah and I found ourselves alone in his parents' living room. "This doesn't have to be a war," he said quietly. "You can still fix this." "How? You've already filed for divorce." "I can withdraw the papers. We can go to counseling, work on our problems like adults." "And what about Marcus?" "What about him? You said it was over." I looked at my husband, really looked at him. He was giving me one last chance, one final opportunity to save our family. All I had to do was admit I was wrong, commit to ending my relationship with Marcus, and fight for our marriage. "I need time to think," I said. Something in his expression shifted. "You're still thinking about him." "I'm thinking about everything. This is my life we're talking about." "It's our life, Clara's life, but you're only thinking about yourself." He was right, and we both knew it. Even faced with losing everything, part of me was still holding on to the fantasy of starting over with someone new. "I'll give you 1 more week," Jonah said. "After that, the papers stand and we move forward with the divorce." As I drove home to my empty house, I realized I was at the point of no return. I could swallow my pride, admit my mistakes, and try to rebuild what I'd destroyed, or I could lose everything I'd ever cared about for the sake of a relationship that was already crumbling under pressure. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "I'm sorry about earlier. This is just complicated." I stared at the message for a long time before deleting it without responding. For the first time since this all began, I was starting to see clearly, and what I saw terrified me. I chose wrong. Again. Instead of fighting for my marriage, I convinced myself that Jonah and I were too broken to fix. Instead of ending things with Marcus, I let him talk me into giving our relationship a real chance. "Once your divorce is final," he said, "we can be together properly." It was a fantasy, and deep down, I knew it. But I was too proud to admit I'd made a mistake, too stubborn to go crawling back to Jonah and beg for forgiveness. The next few months were a nightmare. Jonah withdrew the offer to reconcile and proceeded with the divorce. His lawyer was thorough and ruthless, documenting every text message, every secret meeting, every lie I'd told. They had photos of Marcus and me at restaurants, security footage from my office building showing us leaving together, credit card records of charges I couldn't explain. My own lawyer, a tired-looking man named Peterson, was blunt about my chances. "Mrs. Halvorsen, you're not in a strong position here. Your husband has documented evidence of adultery, and you signed a prenup that specifically addresses infidelity." "But I never actually slept with him," I protested. "The emotional affair is enough, especially combined with the evidence of deception and the impact on your child." Clara was struggling. Her grades had dropped, she was having nightmares, and she'd started seeing a counselor. Every time I saw her, she begged me to come home and be a family again. "I can't, sweetheart," I would tell her. "Sometimes grown-ups can't fix things, even when they want to." The judge's gavel fell like the period at the end of a sentence I'd written myself. Jonah gathered the folders, shook his lawyer's hand, and walked out without a backward glance. Clara held his hand, her little backpack bouncing with every step. She didn't wave. I got the apartment with the flickering hallway light, the visitation schedule printed on thick court paper, and a child support order that took half my paycheck. Marcus was already in Seattle. His last message 3 weeks earlier. "New city, new start. Take care of yourself, E." I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say that wouldn't sound pathetic. The first night alone, I sat on the floor because I hadn't bought a couch yet. I opened Facebook out of habit, and there it was. Jonah, grinning in a way I hadn't seen in years. Clara on his shoulders wearing a paper crown. A woman I didn't recognize stood beside them. Soft brown hair, gentle smile, the kind of steady beauty that doesn't need filters. They were at the zoo, the giraffe exhibit we used to call our spot. The caption, "Some people walk into your life and quietly make it bigger. Thank you for choosing us, Mia." The comments were a blur of hearts and "you deserve this" and "Clara is glowing." I zoomed in on Jonah's face. He looked lighter, younger, like the man I married before I started cataloguing his flaws out loud. Clara called that night at 7:30 sharp, her bedtime routine unchanged, because Jonah believes routines are love you can measure. Mommy, Daddy, and Mia made cookies today. Mia let me crack the eggs all by myself. Mia, already Mia. "That's great, baby. Daddy says if I'm good next weekend, maybe I can have a sleepover at your new place." Next weekend was my supervised visit, 2 hours in a park with a social worker watching from a bench. "I'd love that," I said, voice cracking. After she hung up, Jonah came on the line to confirm pickup time. "She's happy," he said, not accusing, just stating a fact. "I can hear it." Another silence, the kind we used to fill with laughter. "Eirene, I don't hate you. I just can't carry you anymore." "I know. I hope one day you find peace." He hung up before I could answer. I sat in the dark with the phone in my lap and finally admitted the truth out loud to the empty room. The affair wasn't passion. It was sabotage. I didn't leave Jonah because our marriage was dead. I killed it slowly, with every eye roll, every cutting joke. Every night I chose someone else's attention over his quiet devotion. And now the life I thought was boring, the one with school runs and Saturday pancakes, and a man who fixed the leaky faucet without being asked twice, was thriving without me. While I measured my new life in supervised hours and secondhand furniture, Jonah didn't destroy me. He simply stopped saving me from myself. And that was the cruelest, most merciful thing he could have done.